My dear friends, beloved souls on the path of self-realization, today I wish to speak with you about a truth that many seekers overlook in their spiritual journey. We often hear about what we must do to progress spiritually: meditate more, practice yoga, read scriptures, serve others. But rarely do we discuss what we must gradually release from our lives. These are not things we can abandon overnight through mere willpower, for they are deeply woven into the fabric of our consciousness through countless incarnations. They must be dissolved slowly, lovingly, with patience and divine understanding. The spiritual path is not a race, dear ones. It is a gentle unwinding of the soul from the tangled threads of delusion. Just as a lotus does not burst open in an instant but unfolds petal by petal in its own divine timing, so too must we release these 6 binding habits with compassion for ourselves and trust in God's perfect plan for our awakening. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give me a like and comment below about your thought. Let's discover the 6 signs highly spiritual people quit slowly. Thing number 1. The need to be right. Oh, how the ego loves to be right. It feeds on correctness like a hungry ghost, never satisfied, always seeking another argument to win, another person to correct, another opportunity to prove its superiority. I have watched countless spiritual seekers, good people with sincere hearts, become trapped in this subtle prison. When you are young on the spiritual path, you may feel a burning desire to share your newfound wisdom with everyone. You want to correct their misconceptions, to show them the errors in their thinking, to prove that your understanding of truth is superior. This is the ego masquerading as spiritual zeal. But as you mature spiritually, something beautiful begins to happen. You realize that being right is far less important than being kind. You understand that truth does not need your defense. It stands eternal and unchanging, regardless of whether others acknowledge it. You begin to see that every soul is exactly where they need to be on their journey, learning the lessons their karma has arranged for them. I remember a student who came to me many years ago, frustrated because his family would not accept his spiritual beliefs. "Master," he said, "they are so blind. How can I make them see the truth?" I smiled and asked him, "When you were blind, did anyone force you to see? Or did the light come to you when you were ready?" He understood then that his need to be right was actually blocking his spiritual progress more than his family's disbelief ever could. The highly spiritual person learns to hold their truth lightly, like a bird in an open palm. They share when asked, but they do not impose. They understand that silence is often more powerful than speech, and that living the truth is more convincing than arguing for it. This does not happen overnight. It takes years of catching yourself in the act of needing to be right, of feeling that familiar tightness in your chest when someone disagrees with you, and consciously choosing to let it go. Thing number 2. The addiction to drama and emotional turbulence. The world is addicted to drama, my friends. Turn on any radio, open any newspaper, listen to any conversation, and you will find people feeding on emotional excitement like moths drawn to flame. The ego thrives on this turbulence because it makes us feel alive, important, engaged with life. But this is a false aliveness, a counterfeit vitality that leaves the soul exhausted and empty. True spiritual people gradually recognize this addiction within themselves and begin the slow work of withdrawing their energy from it. In the beginning of your spiritual journey, you may still find yourself drawn to gossip, to conflicts, to the emotional dramas of others. You may create turbulence in your own life unconsciously because the calm waters of peace feel unfamiliar, even frightening. The ego whispers, "If there is no drama, am I even alive? If there is no problem to solve, who am I?" I have seen this pattern countless times. A devotee will make wonderful progress in meditation, finding deep peace within. But then, almost unconsciously, they will create some crisis. A conflict with a friend, a dramatic life change, an emotional upheaval, because they have not yet learned to be comfortable in the vast stillness of their own being. The spiritual person learns to recognize this pattern with gentle awareness. They begin to notice when they are about to engage in unnecessary drama. They feel the pull toward emotional turbulence and consciously choose peace instead. This is not suppression, it is discrimination. They learn to distinguish between genuine emotions that need to be felt and processed, and the artificial drama that the ego creates to feel important. This withdrawal happens slowly because drama has been our companion for so many lifetimes. It feels like an old friend, even when it causes us suffering. But gradually, as you taste the nectar of inner peace through meditation and communion with God, the drama loses its appeal. You begin to prefer the quiet joy of your own company, the gentle contentment of a simple life, the profound satisfaction of inner stillness. Thing number 3, the habit of complaining. Complaining is one of the most insidious habits on the spiritual path because it masquerades as honesty, as just being realistic, as necessary communication. But in truth, chronic complaining is a form of spiritual poison that slowly kills our joy and blocks our connection to the divine. When we complain, we are essentially saying to God, "You have made a mistake. This situation should not be as it is. I know better than you how my life should unfold. Can you see the arrogance hidden in this seemingly innocent habit?" I do not speak of legitimate grievances that need to be addressed, or of speaking up against injustice. I speak of the constant, habitual complaining about weather, traffic, other people, our circumstances, our bodies, our past, our present, the endless stream of dissatisfaction that flows from an ungrateful heart. In my years of teaching, I have observed that people who complain frequently are actually pushing away the very blessings they seek. Complaining creates a vibration of lack and dissatisfaction that attracts more situations to complain about. It is a vicious cycle that keeps the soul trapped in suffering. The spiritual person begins to catch themselves in the act of complaining. At first, they may only notice after the words have left their mouth. Then, they begin to notice as they are speaking. Eventually, they catch the complaint before it is spoken, and finally, they catch the complaining thought before it fully forms. This is the slow, patient work of spiritual transformation. What replaces complaining? Gratitude, acceptance, trust in the divine plan, the understanding that every situation, no matter how challenging, is an opportunity for growth. The recognition that God is working through all circumstances for our highest good. I knew a devotee who kept a small stone in his pocket. Every time he caught himself about to complain, he would touch the stone as a reminder to find something to be grateful for instead. At first, he touched that stone dozens of times each day. After a year, he rarely needed it. After 2 years, gratitude had become his natural response to life. This is how transformation happens, slowly, with patience and persistent effort. Thing number 4, the compulsion to judge others. Judgment is the ego's favorite pastime. It allows us to feel superior without actually doing the hard work of self-improvement. It gives us the illusion of wisdom without requiring us to develop true understanding. It separates us from others and from God, creating walls where there should be bridges. When you are new to the spiritual path, you may find yourself judging others even more than before. You have learned some spiritual principles, and now you see everyone else's failings with crystal clarity. Look at how unspiritual they are, the ego whispers. See how they waste their lives on material pursuits. Notice how they lack self-control, how they indulge their senses, how they ignore the higher truths you have discovered. But this judgment is actually a sign of spiritual immaturity, not advancement. The truly spiritual person gradually develops what I call divine vision, the ability to see the soul behind every personality, the divine spark within every being, the perfect plan unfolding through every life circumstance. This does not mean we become blind to harmful behaviors or that we fail to use discrimination. Rather, we learn to observe without condemning, to discern without judging, to see clearly while maintaining compassion. We understand that every soul is doing the best they can with their current level of consciousness, just as we are doing the best we can with ours. I remember walking through the streets of Calcutta with a group of students. We passed a man who was clearly intoxicated, stumbling and shouting. One of my students made a disparaging comment. I stopped and said, "Do you know what karma brought him to this moment? Do you know what pain he is trying to escape? Do you know what lessons his soul is learning through this experience? If you knew his whole story, not just this lifetime, but all his lifetimes, you would weep with compassion, not judge with contempt." The spiritual person learns to replace judgment with curiosity and compassion. Instead of thinking, "What is wrong with them?" they wonder, "What suffering led them here? How can I send them love? What can I learn from observing this situation?" This shift happens gradually, through years of catching judgmental thoughts and consciously choosing a more loving perspective. Thing number 5, the attachment to being busy. In the modern world, busyness has become a badge of honor. People compete to see who is most overwhelmed, most scheduled, most in demand. "I'm so busy" has become the automatic response to, "How are you?" As if constant activity proves our worth and importance. But the spiritual person gradually recognizes that this addiction to busyness is actually a form of running away from ourselves, from God, from the present moment, from the deep questions of existence. We fill every moment with activity because we are afraid of the silence, afraid of what we might discover if we truly stopped and turned inward. I have watched many sincere seekers sabotage their own spiritual progress through this compulsion to stay busy. They want to meditate, but they are too busy. They want to spend time in nature, but they are too busy. They want to deepen their spiritual practice, but they are too busy. And yet, somehow, they always find time for the things that are truly important to them, which reveals that busyness is often a choice, not a necessity. The spiritual path requires spaciousness. It requires time for contemplation, for meditation, for simply being rather than constantly doing. It requires what the world might call wasting time. Sitting in silence, watching the sunset, walking without destination, resting in God's presence without agenda. As you progress spiritually, you begin to value this spaciousness more than productivity. You start to see that the most important work happens in stillness, not in activity. You learn to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to the best opportunity, communion with the divine. This shift happens slowly because our entire society reinforces the opposite message. You will face pressure from others who don't understand why you're not busier, not more ambitious, not more engaged with worldly pursuits. You may face pressure from your own mind, which has been conditioned to equate busyness with worthiness. But gradually, as you taste the fruits of a simpler, more spacious life, you will find the courage to protect your time for spiritual practice. You will learn that doing less with full presence is more valuable than doing more with scattered attention. You will discover that the world does not fall apart when you slow down. In fact, your life becomes more harmonious, more joyful, more aligned with your true purpose. Thing number 6, the fear of being alone. Finally, my dear friends, the spiritual person must gradually release the fear of solitude. This is perhaps the most challenging of all, because human beings are social creatures, and our culture constantly reinforces the message that being alone means being lonely, isolated, or somehow deficient. But there is a profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is feeling separate from others and from God. Solitude is recognizing that you are never truly alone because the divine dwells within you always. Loneliness is a painful void. Solitude is a sacred fullness. When you begin the spiritual path, you may still need constant companionship, constant stimulation, constant connection with others. You may fill every quiet moment with phone calls, social media, television, music, anything to avoid being alone with yourself. This is because you have not yet discovered the treasure that lies within. But as you deepen your meditation practice and your relationship with God, something miraculous happens. You begin to enjoy your own company. You start to crave solitude the way you once craved social interaction. You discover that the most interesting conversations happen in the silence of your own heart, where God speaks to you directly. This does not mean you become antisocial or that you abandon your relationships. Rather, you come to your relationships from a place of fullness rather than neediness. You engage with others because you genuinely enjoy their company, not because you are running from yourself. You can be fully present with people because you are also comfortable being fully present with yourself. I have spent many years in solitude, in caves, in ashrams, in quiet meditation. And I can tell you that I have never been lonely because God has been my constant companion. When you know this companionship, the fear of being alone dissolves like morning mist in the sunshine. This transformation happens slowly. You might start by taking short walks alone, or sitting in meditation for a few extra minutes, or spending an evening in quiet contemplation instead of seeking entertainment. Gradually, you extend these periods of solitude. You might take a day of silence, or a weekend retreat, or longer periods of withdrawal from social activity. Each time you do this, you discover more of who you truly are beneath all the social conditioning, all the roles you play, all the masks you wear. You meet your authentic self, and you find that this self is not separate from God but is an expression of the divine. This discovery makes solitude not just tolerable but precious, a gift you give yourself regularly. The path forward. My beloved friends, I share these 6 things not to discourage you, but to prepare you for the journey ahead. Spiritual growth is not about perfection. It is about progress. It is not about forcing yourself to change overnight. It is about gentle, persistent movement toward the light. Be patient with yourself as you release these habits. Some days you will catch yourself being judgmental, and that's okay. The awareness itself is progress. Some days you will fall back into drama or complaining, and that's okay. Each time you notice, you strengthen your spiritual muscles. Some days you will be too busy or too afraid of solitude, and that's okay. Tomorrow is a new opportunity to choose differently. The key is to keep your eyes fixed on the goal. Union with God, self-realization, the direct experience of your divine nature. Everything else, including the release of these 6 habits, is simply a means to that end. As you deepen your meditation practice and your devotion to God, these habits will naturally fall away, like dead leaves from a tree in autumn. Remember, you are not alone on this path. God is with you always, guiding you, supporting you, loving you unconditionally. Call upon that divine presence whenever you feel discouraged or overwhelmed. Meditate daily, even if only for a few minutes. Surround yourself with spiritually minded people who support your growth. Read inspiring scriptures and teachings. And above all, be kind to yourself. You are doing better than you think. The spiritual journey is the greatest adventure of your existence. It leads you home to your true self, to lasting peace, to unconditional love, to the direct experience of God. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to this ultimate goal. So walk on with courage, with faith, with patience, and with joy. May God bless you and guide you always. In divine friendship, Paramahansa Yogananda.